Deep inside a forest lived a happy little mouse. He had bright eyes and a long tail. He loved to scamper and play. Little Mouse lived under the roots of a big tree. It was a cozy home for a little mouse. The tree gave him shelter from the wind and rain. Every day Little Mouse would gather berries and seeds. He knew just where to find the tastiest treats. He loved his life in the forest. One day Little Mouse was ready for bed. He snuggled into his bed of soft leaves. He closed his eyes, but he couldn't fall asleep. The problem was Big Bear. Big Bear lived in a cave near Little Mouse. He was a very big bear and he snored very loudly. The sound of Big Bear's snoring filled the forest. It rumbled like thunder. Little Mouse covered his ears with his paws, but it was no use. He couldn't sleep a wink. Little Mouse knew he had to do something. The forest was in trouble and he was the only one who could save the day. But he couldn't do it alone. He needed help, and he needed it fast. He scurried out of his home and went to find help. The trees loomed tall around him, their leaves whispering secrets he couldn't understand. He felt small but determined. He had to be brave. First, he asked the squirrels. They were always chattering and seemed to know everything that happened in the forest. "Can you help me wake up Big Bear?" he squeaked, his tiny voice filled with hope. The squirrels paused their chattering and looked at him with wide eyes. The squirrels shook their heads. "No, no, no!" they chattered in unison. "We're too little," they said, their voices trembling. "Big Bear might squish us." Little Mouse's heart sank, but he didn't give up. He knew he had to keep trying. Big Bear was the only one who could help save the forest. Next, Little Mouse asked the rabbits. They were known for their speed and agility. Surely they could help him. "Can you help me wake up Big Bear?" he pleaded, his eyes wide with desperation. The rabbits twitched their noses and looked at each other nervously. The rabbits hopped away in fear. "No, no, no," they cried, as they disappeared into the underbrush. "We're too scared," they cried. "Big Bear might chase us." Little Mouse sighed. He felt a heavy weight in his chest. No one was brave enough to help him. He looked around the forest, hoping to find someone, anyone, who could assist him. The forest seemed to close in around him, the shadows growing longer as the day went on. He knew he couldn't give up. The forest depended on him. He took a deep breath and decided to try one more time. Maybe, just maybe, there was someone out there who would be brave enough to help him wake up Big Bear. Then Little Mouse had an idea. He would ask the bravest animal in the forest for help. He scurried through the trees, his tiny heart pounding. Finally, he found who he was looking for. It was Lion. Lion was the king of the forest. He had a loud roar and sharp claws. All the animals were afraid of him. Lion was resting in the sun when Little Mouse approached him. He looked down at Little Mouse with a puzzled expression. "Mighty Lion," squeaked Little Mouse, "I need your help. Big Bear is snoring so loudly that I can't sleep. Would you please wake him up?" Lion chuckled. "Little Mouse," he said, "you want me, the king of the forest, to wake up a sleeping bear?" Little Mouse nodded. "Yes, please, you're the only one strong enough to do it." Lion sighed. He was about to send Little Mouse away when he felt something itchy on his back. "Oh, bother," Lion grumbled. "Fleas!" Section 6. A Mighty Roar. In the heart of the jungle, where the trees stood tall and the rivers flowed freely, lived a small but brave mouse. This mouse, though tiny in stature, had a heart full of courage and a mind brimming with clever ideas. He was known to all the animals as Little Mouse. One sunny afternoon, as Little Mouse was scurrying through the underbrush, he noticed something unusual. The mighty lion, the king of the jungle, was pacing back and forth, clearly distressed. Little Mouse saw his chance. Gathering all his courage, Little Mouse approached the lion. "I can help you with those fleas, mighty lion," he squeaked. The lion, who was usually so fierce and proud, looked down at the tiny creature in surprise. "You can?" he asked, his voice filled with a mix of curiosity and hope. Without waiting for another word, Little Mouse climbed onto Lion's back. He knew that this was his moment to prove that even the smallest creatures could make a big difference. With great care and precision, he began to pick off each flea with his tiny paws. The task was meticulous, but Little Mouse was determined. He worked diligently, ensuring that he didn't miss a single flea. As the last flea was removed, Lion sighed with relief. The constant itching that had plagued him for days was finally gone. He felt a wave of gratitude wash over him as he looked at the small but mighty mouse. "Thank you, little mouse," he said, his voice filled with genuine appreciation. "You have no idea how much this means to me." Little Mouse smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "You were a big help," Lion continued. "I never would have thought that someone so small could make such a big difference." "You're welcome, Mighty Lion," Little Mouse replied, his voice steady and confident. "Sometimes it's the smallest among us who can make the biggest impact." Lion chuckled, a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the jungle. "Now will you please help me wake up Big Bear?" he asked, a playful glint in his eye. Little Mouse nodded eagerly. "Of course, Mighty Lion," he said. "A deal is a deal, and friends always help each other." And so, with a newfound bond of friendship, the Mighty Lion and the brave Little Mouse set off together, ready to face whatever challenges the jungle had in store for them. A deal is a deal. Section 7. Sleepy Bear Awakes. In the heart of the dense green forest, where the trees whispered secrets to the wind and the streams sang lullabies, lived a bear named Big Bear. He was known far and wide for his long, deep slumbers every year as the leaves turned golden and the air grew crisp. Big Bear would retreat into his cozy cave to hibernate through the winter. His friends, Lion and Little Mouse, would often visit him, but they knew better than to disturb his peaceful sleep. One bright spring morning, Lion and Little Mouse decided it was time for Big Bear to wake up. The forest was alive with the sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves, and the sun cast a warm glow on everything it touched. Lion, with his majestic mane and powerful stride, followed the tiny, nimble Little Mouse to Big Bear's cave. They had a plan to wake their friend from his deep slumber. As they reached the entrance of the cave, Lion took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the fresh forest air. He knew that his roar was powerful enough to be heard across the entire forest. With a determined look, he let out a mighty roar that echoed through the trees and sent birds flying from their nests. The ground shook, and the trees swayed as the force of Lion's roar reverberated through the forest. The animals paused in their activities, looking around in surprise and curiosity. It was not every day that they heard such a powerful sound. Inside his cave, Big Bear woke up with a start. His eyes snapped open, and he looked around in confusion. The roar had jolted him from his dreams, and he was not sure what was happening. Big Bear stumbled out of his cave, blinking in the sunlight. The bright light hurt his eyes, which had grown accustomed to the darkness of the cave. He squinted and tried to make sense of his surroundings. He looked around in confusion, trying to understand what had woken him up so suddenly. The forest looked different in the daylight, and he felt a bit disoriented. "What was that noise?" he mumbled to himself, still trying to shake off the remnants of sleep. He had never heard such a loud sound before, and it left him feeling a bit uneasy. Just then, Little Mouse scurried to Big Bear's side. The tiny creature looked up at the towering bear with a reassuring smile. Little Mouse had always been brave and resourceful, and he knew that Big Bear needed some comfort. "It's okay, Big Bear," he squeaked in his high-pitched voice. "There's nothing to be afraid of. Lion just helped me wake you up." Big Bear looked at Lion, who was standing proudly next to Little Mouse. The sight of his two friends together made him feel a bit more at ease. He realized that they had gone through all this trouble just to wake him up. Big Bear looked at Lion and Little Mouse standing together. He smiled sheepishly. "Oh," he said, feeling a bit embarrassed. He knew that he had a tendency to sleep very deeply, and it often took a lot to wake him up. "I must have been snoring again," he admitted with a sheepish grin. His friends laughed, and the sound of their laughter echoed through the forest, blending with the songs of the birds and the rustling of the leaves. It was a new day, and Big Bear was ready to embrace it with his friends by his side. Section 8. A Lesson in Kindness. From that day on, Big Bear was more mindful of his snoring. He tried to sleep more quietly so he wouldn't disturb his little neighbor. Lion and Little Mouse became the best of friends. They learned that even though they were different sizes, they could still help each other. Little Mouse learned that even the smallest creature can be brave. Lion learned that even the biggest and strongest need help sometimes. And Big Bear learned that it's important to be thoughtful of others. Section 9. Friends come in all sizes. The story of the lion, the mouse, and the sleepy bear teaches us that friends come in all shapes and sizes. It's important to be kind to everyone, no matter how big or small they are. You never know when you might need a friend, and a little kindness can go a long way.